in this video, I'm going to show you what you need to learn and improve on in order to reach the ELO level of 1500 in chess. And I'm going to assume that you're a beginner, but if you're, let's say, for an example, 1200, this is sort of things, they can still very much apply to you. And so let's start. Step 0 or step 1 to improve in chess is very simply to have an opening, and you need one opening for each side. You don't need more than that. One to each side. And you need to be as good as you possibly can with it. The reason that you want to have an opening is because players, when they just start to play chess, let's say for example 800, 900 ELO levels, they don't really have an opening, or even better, they have an opening but they lack crucial opening knowledge in order to improve. So if you can be the person that literally just comes to the game, starts right now at 800, 900, and you have a lot more opening knowledge than your opponents, it's going to be very, very easy for you to then play chess and improve. And that applies all the way up to 1500, where players need to have a lot of opening knowledge. The first thing that I want you to do is learn one opening, one for each side, and be as good as you possibly can with that opening. Also, a quick tip, if you're just starting to play chess too, is to play, instead of games of 10 minutes, play games of 15 minutes with a time bonus. For an example, this is going to be a lot easier than to level up, because you're going to have more time to think, and you could also potentially avoid a lot of blunders that happen just because of time management. So having a lot more time is going to be much easier. Again, if you're just starting to play chess and you want to improve, the first thing that you need to be concerned with is having one opening for each side and to be as good as you possibly can with it. If you're, for an example, playing the Italian, you need to know everything that you can about the Italian. So what are you going to do? For a moment, if your opponent does bishop to c5, what if instead he does something like knight to f6? These are things that you need to know in order to improve as a chess player. Note, when you're learning openings, it's also a lot easier to learn the ideas behind an opening, and it's totally fine also to buy even a book for this, because a book can give you a lot more information about an opening. I'll give you an example for mine. So it's literally just like you can buy even a book, and can you see it? In these books, there's a lot more information than a coach can give you, because it's a book and the coach is like 1 hour. So it's a lot easier overall. Plus, in a book, you can also memorize a lot easier than in, let's say, a video. So I will advise you to get a book like this. And also, when you're training with a book, to be in front of a computer, because it's going to be a lot easier then. And so now let's continue to the second thing. Okay, so now here's the next and second thing that you need to avoid in order to reach from 800 to 1500 in chess. And we're gonna see it very, very easily through an example. So in this example, white is winning. Okay, he's winning because he's up 2 points of material. Okay, which is a lot. So he's up 2 points of material, and in here, black decides to move knight to h4. It's an inaccuracy because computer really wants you to develop this. Okay, but he wants to threaten a rook, and after takes, white does a move which gives black a winning advantage. Okay, white decides to do pawn to g3, and as you can see, you're completely losing now, and this has been the actual game. Okay, I'm not making this stuff up, this is the actual game. Knight moves, of course, to f3, and you're completely winning now as black, even though you before this you were completely lost, and now you're completely won. Okay, because of just one blunder. Okay, one blunder gave away a game. If you're gonna be honest with yourself, this happens to you. It definitely happened to me a lot in the starting phases of chess. This sort of mistake, when you're just like focusing on everywhere else on the board and you're just focusing on this one thing, this is called tunnel vision. That's the sort of mistake that is. It's just the one mover that you do because you're focusing on one thing and you neglect everything else that happens on the same time. you've focused on how do I kick this knight away, and you've neglected that it can move to a square like f3 and to fork a king and queen. This is average chess players' wet dream, and it mostly happens when you're a beginner. When you're reaching intermediate levels, it's going to stop happening. So beginners exploit tunnel vision as much as you can. When your opponent does them, it's really a way to win a lot of games because everyone misses this type of stuff. I can guarantee if you're a beginner, go to your games of 900, 1000, 800, and you're going to find this type of mistakes a lot. So now we're going to touch on how to avoid this type of stuff. So how do you solve things like pawn to g3 in this position? The way to solve this sort of stuff, it's actually very, very simple. What you're going to do is before every move that you make, you're going to ask yourself, if I make this move, okay, what could my opponent do? And then you're not going to face up problems like knight to f3. That will never happen. Now, the next and the third thing, which ties up to this one, is tactics. The third thing that you want to focus on in chess are tactics, and the fourth simplest one and the most important one, the fork, the pin, the skewer, and the discovered attack. These are the four tactics that you mostly want to focus on when you're starting to play. For an example, if you didn't know that what a fork tactic is, you probably wouldn't have found that your opponent just blundered like this. So the way that you exploit tunnel visions, and most of the time, it's just like a tactical mistake, and you need to come up with how are you gonna exploit it, if that makes sense. And so the way that you're gonna learn more tactics is, of course, puzzles. So that is the third thing you need to focus on when playing chess. Is just to do so many tactics and puzzles that you could recognize mistakes like pawn to g3, and you could exploit them when they happen in your games. Now, the next thing that we're going to talk about, which is also extremely important when you're just playing chess, are opening principles. They are basically the rules of what to do and what not to do when you first of all start to play the game. I'm going to show you an example for one. Playing very principled is going to give you a big advantage because most players don't play really that principled, and so it's going to be very easy to level up then from beginner to intermediate if you're going to play according to what we call principles, and also prevent yourself from doing things like tunnel visions and exploiting them when they happen to you. I'll show you right now an example for what opening principles are. So white have decided to do pawn to e4, e5, and we get a very typical Italian, okay? And then black decided to do something like h6. Now, as you can see, this is called the anti-fried liver, so currently it's okay. But then, after c3 and knight f6, white have done a mistake, which is bishop to d5, okay? Bishop to d5 is a mistake, for the reason is, it's moving the same piece twice in the opening, and this is something you really want to avoid when you just start to play chess, okay? And as you can see, computer gives now black the small advantage that he has, and instead you should do something like pawn to d4. Also, in the Italian, the light squared bishop, you really don't want to trade him under any circumstances, so this is not the best thing for white in this position, in this Italian game. And besides that, after a piece is developed already, you don't want to give black or your opponent the initiative by just moving it again, okay? Because now black can do a ton of things. He can, again, like he did in this position, develop another piece. Now you have two pieces, one of them can be captured, for three pieces that are developed for your opponent. You really don't want to have this. So again, never move the same piece twice in the opening. This is an example for a principle in the opening. You can just type on Google opening principles, and the videos that come up there, whichever one comes first, that more people have watch this one, and it will give you a very nice idea of what opening principles you need to listen to and follow. I want to talk about the last thing, which is also extremely important when you start to play chess, which is to analyze games, and specifically the ones that you've lost, okay? These are the most important ones to analyze. Analyzing your games is super important. What it can do is basically make you self-taught, if that makes sense. If I'm losing now a bunch of games, I would really love if I could just not lose them, right? So analyzing them is the way to do so, because it can teach you what is the pattern of mistakes that you make. So super important. After a loss streak, just stop for a moment and analyze in case you wanna level up. And so these are the 5 things that are really, really crucial when you're just trying to level up. If you have any questions, leave them down below. I will do my best to answer all of them. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to watch more like this, then subscribe. Well, I will see you next time. Bye bye.